So, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this particular time, this lab representation. And as we wait, we are waiting for the people to register, and they are registering. You can see a good number, but you get an opportunity to be welcomed. Thank you. So, good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is Dr. Ann Boyo. I'm going to be the moderator for this particular session. I'll give Dr. Kigondo a minute to be with us and start us. Dr. Kigondo.
Thank you very much for this session, welcoming people to this webinar by various stakeholders. We want to welcome Anne today, Linda Yamuta, and Dr. Josephine Ohaz and Liz Kaemba. We want to thank you for your continued support of these mental health webinars, and they have been very useful for all of us. And we pray that as we continue, this was one of the good side effects of COVID. Today, the topic is very close to my heart, femininity, and I am ready to hear what the presenter has to say, and I am sure I will have a thing or two to say for some time. Thank you very much, and let's have a good presentation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Giwondo, and I'm going to introduce Dr. Linda Yamuta, who will be our presenter for this evening. She is a consultant psychiatrist and mental health advocate. She's a founder of Mental Sphere platform and host of Mental Sphere TV talk show. She has a keen interest in the digital space and delivery of mental health information and services. I'm sure she's going to take us through this very interesting topic that we've been told. And welcome, Dr. Yamuta.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mboyo. I think Dr. Mboyo forgot to mention she was my supervisor when I did my dissertation. It's such a privilege to be introduced by your supervisor. I don't know how often this happens, but yeah, I'm glad to be here. Anyway, let's start. I will share the screen shortly. All right, so as you all know, today we are talking about femininity and mental health. And as introduced, my name is Dr. Yamuta. So we'll just start with a brief definition, just so that we are all on the same page and understanding. So femininity has basically been described as the possession of social role behaviors that are presumed to be characteristic of a girl or a woman, and this by the American Psychological Association Dictionary. There are many other definitions from different dictionaries, depending on which one you use, but this one I got it from the American Psychological Association. So femininity is also a concept that has been socially constructed. It's multidimensional. It's influenced by both biological and cultural factors. And being the term femininity doesn't necessarily mean being biologically female, like the biological female sex, because feminine traits can be exhibited by both sexes, both males and females. Now, other terms that are commonly used are feminism, which is basically the advocacy of women's rights on the ground of equality of the sexes. So it should not be confused with femininity at this point. Masculinity, which I think we talked about maybe 2 weeks back, is basically not really the opposite, but now masculinity are qualities or attributes regarded as characteristically or predominantly of men. So stereotypically, feminine traits are, as outlined, there's nurturance. Females are naturally known to be the nurturing, caring type. There's the gentleness, warmth, and tenderness. There's now the passivity, cooperativeness, modesty, and humility. There's expressiveness, being able to communicate maybe your emotions, being sensitive, being emotional as well. There's empathy, affection, being kind and being helpful. They naturally want to help, being devoted, being supportive, and being understanding. This may be a bit in slight contrast to masculine traits, which exhibit more of strength, courage, independence, leadership, assertiveness, confidence. Needless to say is you can't have one, you can't be completely on one end of the spectrum such that you only exhibit feminine traits or you only exhibit masculine traits. There's usually an intertwining of, there's a space, there's a middle ground where these traits have to meet. So just some history. This term femininity stemmed during the medieval period, that's in the 1300s. During this period, the traditional roles of females were basically to be the maiden, the wife, or the widow. You know, you're just there as those characters. There was no women in leadership or women taking up more roles of being maybe providers as we see in the current day and age. During the mid-14th century, however, when there was the Black Death pandemic, another pandemic like the one we faced recently, still facing, the Black Death pandemic, the bubonic plague, wiped out a greater population. And this enabled now the society to now embrace women in leadership roles and women taking up more roles other than what was considered their traditional roles. In the mid-20th century, Goffman, a psychologist, sociologist, argued that women are socialized to present themselves as precious, ornamental, and fragile, uninstructed, and ill-suited for anything. They're ill-suited for anything requiring muscular exertion, meaning that anything heavy, that's not your portion, you know. And to project shyness, reserve, and display frailty, fear, and incompetence, such that you don't know, you know. So women, there's a point where women were more to be seen, but not to be heard. Yes, so gender, according to Judith Butler, gender, which is still around the mid-20th century, she came up with the term that gender is not fixed or inherent, but rather is a socially defined set of practices and traits that have over time grown to become labeled as feminine or masculine. So again, as we go back to socially defined or socially constructed set of practices. So this stem in terms of behavior and personality. So feminine traits in behavior, personality are tenderness, gracefulness, softness, as we had mentioned before. Sexual passiveness or sexual receptivity is considered feminine, while sexual assertiveness and sexual desire are sometimes considered masculine. Clothing and appearance, females of feminine behavior required females to have long hair, flawless skin, little or no facial or body hair. There's a time where colors pink and blue, I think it's still there right now, where pink is predominantly associated with females, blue males. The length of clothes, covering of the skin, which now currently, as we're having more females being wearing, maybe exposing more than they were before. There was the issue about foot binding and neck rings for beauty those days, which have now been phased out by the females. Then the traditional roles, as we mentioned before, women were not so much into the leadership space, they're more submissive, passive. Occupation, there were occupations that were predominantly reserved for females because they didn't require so much assertiveness or leadership. And of course, we know about the occupation pay gap, where for the longest time, females were paid less compared to the male counterparts. Then education for girls, we've come a long way with this one because for many communities, some still up to now, females will, in families where they have to consider, or rather, how do you call it, like negotiate whether they'll take the girls to school or the boys to school. Of course, the boys will get priority over the girls. So there are still some traditional cultures that see educating girls as quote unquote a waste of time and resources. However, still an evolving world, and with the growth of science and technology, the coming of feminism and other activists, we've come a very long way in terms of how femininity was viewed from where we started in the 1300s to how we are viewing femininity right now. So in the modern day, the new femininity is about having a combination of both soft and strong attributes. We are acknowledging that the modern woman has the capability of balancing or being able to show a soft in the supportive side, while at the same time demonstrating strength. She can be resilient, and she can know, she's able now to speak her mind rather than just being seen. Again, femininity is a social construct. So go to the life cycle of the female. This is nothing new to anyone. So of course, it starts the baby. There isn't much expectation at that time. During the early education period, I think girls, generally how the society perceives that girls are supposed to be, or rather usually more obedient. They're not troublemakers compared to their counterparts who are now the boys, of course, were a bit more aggressive. They are always playing rough games. They're fighting. They are getting into trouble all the time. So you'll find girls who display such traits sometimes may be seen as not following social norms. Yes, teenagehood and adolescence, of course, here now comes changes now, hormones, the beginning of now menarche, the beginning of now trial and error, peer pressure, trying to fit into the society. Yes, so those are the teenagers. Then we move to the young adults. The young adults is now going to school, understanding that my education is going to work for me in certain way. You're able now to make more independent decisions as the young adult. Then there's the working. This is the typical life cycle anyway. The working woman, the mother, then you move to motherhood, pregnancy and motherhood, family, career woman, older adult, and of course, when become an elder or the grandmother. So one thing to understand is within this life cycle of the female, there's new responsibilities that one has to take on. When you become a young adult, there are things now that are expected of you that you used to do that when you are a teenager that people no longer expect you to be doing. When you become a mother or a family career woman, there are more responsibilities that you have to take on. Of course, with all this come hormonal changes, straight from young adulthood and how it goes to the middle adulthood all the way to menopause. Then we have societal expectations during this life cycle of the female. So those are also things that we need to embrace. So some societal expectations from this life cycle of the female is the society expects you to be the good daughter. You know, girls are responsible, they're fragile, they're obedient, they're a good sister, you're taking on responsibility for other siblings. You'll find there's usually, in most families, there'll be a bit more pressure on the girls rather than the boys to instill maybe obedience among the other siblings. Then, of course, there's the good wife, nurturing, caring for her husband or the marriage. There's the good mother, taking care of the children. There's the good woman, being respectful and respected in the society. There's a good friend, listening and a helpful friend. And of course, the real woman who has it all figured out. These are societal expectations. And of course, as you can see, it's a handful. So social consequences now of all those societal expectations come to shouldering responsibilities, such as failed marriages and divorce. You'll find in many cases when there's a failed marriage, people always trying to look at the woman. What did you do wrong? What did you do to the man for it to be that, like, you're now moving to the divorce? So she carries more of the she shoulders more of the responsibility for the failed marriage. Some cases, even when it comes to infidelity, you find women are being told that maybe you were not being enough for your man, that's why he had to go outside. So there's a lot of responsibilities that falls on the woman because of what the society expects. Of course, when it comes to issues of childbearing and infertility, of course, from our fertility experts, there are more female known causes of infertility, but that doesn't exclude the fact that there is also male causes of infertility. But in couples where there's an issue to do with fertility, you'll find the finger being pointed to the woman first. I think we even have a celebrity in Uganda where this was an issue with her marriage, and she got married to someone else and got pregnant. But you see, as the society was pointing finger to her, like, why aren't you bearing children? Familial economic strains or stresses, whenever the family plunges into debt, there's questions on the woman, why weren't you responsible enough to maybe secure some savings for the family, and questions like that. Misbehaved children or academically not performing children, the fingers always pointed again to their mother. This mother didn't train her child well. Where's the mother of this child? This child is behaving very badly. Does he have a mother, you know? Before we go to the father, or the fathers being made accountable for their roles. When it comes to abuse, because of the fact that females, the feminine behavior is that of submission, you find that women are also sometimes being accused in interpartner physical violence and marital rape, because you're supposed to be submissive, as the society says it. Raping of girls and ladies who are also not married, it also happens. And what we find most of the time in our society, there'll be victim shaming because you're supposed to be submissive, you know. And it will now come to the role for, did you provoke the person? What were you wearing? So it's that you're supposed to be the good woman, you're supposed to be the good girl, you're supposed to be the good wife. Yes, so then now comes the issue of burnout, the idealization of a real woman who has it all figured out. How much can you balance when it comes to keeping it all together, from your career life to your family life to your social life? This real woman idealization, how much of it is, you know, workable? Yes, so not everything is negative. We also have social consequences that have embraced femininity. For example, Mother's Day. For whatever reason, Mother's Day is always more celebrated than Father's Day. International Women's Day is almost always more celebrated than Men's Day. I can bet that half of us don't even know which day International Men's Day is. That's because we normally celebrate femininity a bit more. So it's, yeah, not only everything is dark and gloom. Then we have emotional connections. Females, because of that, are able to build more emotional connections with friends and family. They're able to receive help much easier. In the olden age, you'll find children tend to, I don't have any scientific backup of this, but children tend to lean more towards their mothers when they're growing, when they're much older, probably because of the connection that they made, because fathers have been maybe more of the authoritative sort of disciplinary parents. Yes, compared to the mothers who are more nurturing, more loving, more connecting, more understanding, etc. So the other thing is women generally outlive men, probably because of less risk-taking behaviors. And of course, now in states or economic states, when you look at economic states that embrace femininity, they're also doing well. Yes, so come to women empowerment. This was a term also coined some time back with the rising of femininity and the first wave of feminists, the second wave of feminists. So women empowerment came now to enable women to take charge of their health, especially when it comes to sexual and reproductive health. They're able to make decisions better for themselves. The economy, they're able to take charge and not to be fully dependent on their husbands, their fathers. The women are now able to even take more leadership roles. When it comes to occupation, women are now taking occupations that were predominantly assumed to be male. Women are now in the army, women are now policemen, women are doctors, women are in the science field that was considered to be more of a male predominant field. Then you come to education, of course, we're having more and more girls, more and more ladies being educated, and not only on the primary, secondary level, to the tertiary level, to postgraduate, etc., etc. And of course, able to make better decisions for themselves, better themselves. Before, it was the woman has to take care of the family, has to take care of others, but then now we're also looking at the empowerment, where now as a woman, you're able to take care of yourself first. You're also able to meet your needs so that you're able to meet the needs of others. So we're talking about feminine and masculine societies or cultures. You can see typical opinions coming from a masculine culture. You'll find that it's the men's role to rule, whereas it's the women's role to raise up children. But in a feminine culture, men are also involved in the children's upbringing. Gender roles are explicit and concrete in masculine culture, whereas in the feminine cultures, the roles are interchangeable. In the masculine culture, men should dominate in a society, but in a feminine culture, gender should be treated equally. Independence is the highest ideal, and people who achieve success are worthy of admiration when it comes to masculine culture compared to the feminine culture, where mutual dependence is ideal, and people who handle adversity deserve appreciation. When it comes to the masculine culture, ambitions lead to action. You have to be ambitious, you have to be hardworking, you know, and the great and the fast are the ones who are the ones considered the ones who have made it. Yes, and when it comes to the feminine culture, we have service being the greatest motivator to action. You want to serve, you want to help, yes, you want to build, you want to grow. Yes, and the little and the slow are beautiful, and they're also embraced. In a masculine culture, people live to work, whereas in a feminine culture, you work to live. So there are different countries which have embraced different cultures. I think for Japan, it's mostly a masculine nation. Sweden is mostly a feminine nation. However, they both work, they find a way to work it for themselves. So it's, at the end of the day, it's which culture, how does the culture help your economy and the people within your state? All right, so enough of definitions, backgrounds, and everything. I'll come to mental health. This is a definition term that you've had being repeated over and over. The World Health Organization conceptualizes mental health as a state of well-being in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities. The individual can cope with the normal stresses of life. The individual can work productively and fruitfully. And the individual is able to make a contribution to his or her community in whatever capacity or whatever state they're in. So when it comes to femininity and ill mental health, so there are social norms that lead women to ill mental health. Conforming to feminine norms and mental health can lead to higher levels of anxiety in women, especially for women who are who have higher compliance to conforming to the societal feminine norms. There was a study done in Spain, and they find actually that the higher levels among women who are very strictly confining to feminine norms. So conforming behavior normally is used to facilitate social acceptance, such that if you conform, you're better accepted, you fit in easier, you do not have people maybe against you. And conforming behaviors have also led females to having eating disorders, because they want the ideal, you know, the body shape. The society deems that females should have a small waist, maybe not be overweight and all that. So you find girls having eating disorders because they want to conform to that idealized type. We have gender-based violence and women not being able to speak out about this because you want to conform to the behaviors, because society has said you have to be submissive. When you're beaten, you still be submissive. So this has also enabled gender-based violence to continue. Then for some, it's lack of fulfillment. You find there are women who end up not living a fulfilled life because they had to probably forgo some of the goals or the visions that they had in life in order to conform to what the society deems as the ideal woman, the ideal wife, the ideal mother. Yes. Yes, so disorders more commonly affecting women. We have postpartum psychosis, postpartum depression, of course. Depression, and this sometimes can be fueled by the fact that if the women don't have a good supportive structure, especially when it comes to their own nuclear family, it may be a very big deal. At the end of the day, as we said, women are the ones who are mostly the nurturing type. There's a study, I didn't include it here, there's a study that was done in is it Japan or India, that showed that when a man gets schizophrenia, he's more likely to be taken care of, to be nurtured by his spouse. But when the female got unwell, most of the time they're disbanded from the community, they're disowned, they're chased out, they're isolated. It's because women are mostly the nurturers, but then now for the men to accept to nurture the women, it has become also a bit of a challenge. So that is one area that can be addressed effectively. Depression, as we know, is more common again in women. Anxiety, also common in females more than males. Post-traumatic stress disorder, eating disorders, as again, up to 10 times for the females. Attempted suicides are quite high again in females, though we know that completed suicides are higher in males. There's also now the other thing when it comes to maybe serotonin levels being maybe absorbed or, broken down faster in females, yet that is still neither here nor there. There's also the issue to do with hormonal changes, which could also be precipitating factors to some of these disorders. When it comes to postpartum psychosis, postpartum depression, of course, with the hormonal changes that happen in pregnancy and after pregnancy. So this is just the life stage again. Cycle with in the females. So as you can see, the top here, we started from infancy to puberty, then the reproductive age, the climacteric period, or the premenopausal, perimenopausal period rather, and then the postmenopausal period. So as you can see, around these 20-year-olds or the young adults, basically, there are more issues to do with eating disorders because, again, they want to conform, they want to look a certain type of way. There's menstruation-related depression, the PMS, because now the hormonal changes that are happening. We do have around mid-30s, from 20s to 40s, issues to do with anxiety disorder, probably also because of wanting to be accepted in the society. Sexual maturation, the reproductive age, we also have issues to do with depression, postpartum depression during childbirth, burnout-related depression as you start now balancing being a mother, being a career woman, being a family woman. Yes, and taking care of yourself. Then we have, yes, the menopausal depression, just probably because of the hormonal fluctuation as well. Then the post-climacteric years, the post-menopausal years, we have dementia, also commonly seen in females, but probably because we have more females outliving males, and probably that's why it could be reported more in females than males. So warning signs in females, one thing to note is generally women are better at health-seeking behavior. So that's a good thing also, meaning that they're able to come out and seek help more than probably the males would. So warning signs, it doesn't change. Again, in mental health, you're able to look at the thoughts, the feelings, and the behavior of one person in order to state whether there's a mental health issue or not. So when it comes to the thoughts, is the person feeling helpless, anxious, suicidal, homicidal, any thoughts of infanticide, issues to do with concentration or memory. When it comes to the feelings, there's feeling low, feeling maybe elated, lethargic, irritability and mood shifts, hypervigilance, especially for those with anxiety or PTSD, being overly emotional or emotionally numb. This is also for people who've undergone a lot of emotional trauma, so they can be either on either end of the spectrum, overly emotional or emotionally numb, and apathy. Anhedonia as well can be a warning sign as well that something could be wrong. When it comes to the behavior, difficulties in sleep, either sleeping too much, sleeping too little, and especially during the postpartum period. When it comes to the appetite, again, either high or low. Libido as well, either too much or too little. Mostly for females, I think it's too little. Issues to do with self-neglect, reduced socialization or overly sociable, work and family responsibilities. Again, the type of signs will vary from a disorder to another disorder. The main important thing is just knowing that there's a problem and you're able to seek help, and the doctor may now be able to ask further questions to ascertain like what disorder could the person be ailing from. So aspects of femininity that can promote good mental health is the ability to feel, to express and manage a range of positive and negative emotions, the ability to form and maintain good relationship with others, the ability to cope and to manage change and uncertainty. These are very good aspects of femininity that can promote good mental health. Also things to do with mindfulness, because you're able to be in touch with your feelings and your emotions. Those are strategies that have been employed in promoting positive mental health. So moving forward, I'll just begin by saying femininity is beautiful. Yes, very. So one of the few things we can do is to increase our own self-awareness and help others increase their self-awareness. That is by being able to do this, we're able to harness good traits that we have, and we can work on the weaker ones that we have. But if you're not self-aware, you'll not even know what do you need to work on in the first place. Then we have the emotional intelligence, which is basically understanding, using and managing your own emotions in positive ways to relieve stress, to communicate effectively, to empathize with others, to overcome challenges, and to diffuse conflict. And basically just the role of empathy, how just to, understand how your emotions impact the environment around you and how to read the environment around you and act appropriately. Yes, another thing is probably community awareness, or that feminine traits are not weaknesses, because sometimes when you say feminine traits, you find the male counterparts want to shy away from that at all and not want to embrace that. And now what that comes, the extreme of it, where we have the extreme masculinity, and that in itself has its own disadvantages. Yeah. Then desexualization of the female physique. Yes, to be able to just understand that this female physique is a person, it's not just an object that can be taken advantage of or used for sexual pleasure only. Yes, mentorship from older females and knowledgeable peers, and very much not to shy away from uncomfortable discussions. And this is very important, and especially for like the adolescents and young adults, they usually have a lot going on in their minds. And sometimes we shy away from having some of these uncomfortable discussions, especially around safe sex, around teenage pregnancies, around gender-based violence and divorce. When should a woman leave a marriage that is, she's maybe being abused from day to day? How do we talk about these uncomfortable discussions and make it a safe space for females to be able to be free and grow? Then female-friendly programs for help, especially those faced with gender-based violence. Sometimes it can be a bit difficult for females when probably after an ordeal of a sexual assault, you go to hospital and you meet a very masculine male who lacks empathy, who lacks proper communication skills, to be very difficult for that female to even talk about the ordeal that has happened. So, so sometimes this may reduce health-seeking behavior when it comes to such problems. So also to reduce the stigma and victimization of the people who have been affected by this. Then the use of existing female groups, such as chamas and other female groups, to promote positive mental health, as they do empowerment, such as economic empowerment and self-empowerment. So also to promote positive mental health and know, or rather recognize mental health difficulties. So this is just one thing I put out, types of female personality types. It's just also about being aware, just knowing from these female personality types, where do you lie? There are very many other personality types, tests that you can do. This is just to create self-awareness, so that you're able to understand yourself better. And with self-awareness, you're able to enhance your strengths and work on your weaknesses. There's no personality type that is much superior to another, one that is worse to another. We're all just different, and we can work with our strengths to make them work for us in whatever environment that we are found in. All right, so as you come also to the strategies, we need to remember that women do not live in an island. The role of men and men mentorship programs to also strike a balance in embracing their femininity while not losing their predominant masculinity side. This helps also in including them as a family member, and not merely just as a provider, such that the father is also incorporated as being that fatherly role, and not just the ATM where, daddy, I need pocket money. So better integration. So this leads to better integration and understanding and in issues of solving family discord. It also helps in situations where the wife or the mother could be unwell, and how to provide a supportive role. And this, at the end of the day, provides stronger support systems for the family. Also helps in cases where the spouse dies or runs away for whatever reason, how the man can be able to now nurture a loving home in the absence of a mother. So femininity is not only a reserve for females. Women also have a responsibility of empowering not only their female offspring, but also their male offspring. I saw a brief thing on social media where this gentleman was saying how his mother, they're all boys, I think 3 boys, and his mother would subject them every weekend to a course that they had to do, and they get certificates for it. It was basically a course of learning how to be better men and how to treat other people, including their friends and also females, in a better way. So this could also be something that women need to work on, that not only empowering the female offspring, but also the male offspring, but also not growing over feminizing the male offspring as well. So we do have the extremists. Of course, in everything you have to have extremists everywhere. The coined terms, quote unquote, toxic feminism and toxic masculinity. So one thing to understand is femininity and masculinity are not different, opposing or competing traits. It's a yin to the yang. It's not that you're either feminine or you're masculine. You have both traits, as we mentioned before. And we need to integrate both to levels that help us live fulfilling lives and achieve what we desire as ourselves as happiness. So no gender is superior. We are different and better or poor at different aspects in life. We do have anti-men groups or slogans, anti-women groups or slogans. We have the slogans we've seen on social media. I don't know, men are trash, stay Taliban, things that try to work against healthy feminism and healthy masculinity. So those are things that we need to work on, such that we understand that there isn't either that is superior to the other. Now, as I conclude, we have some controversial developments in regards to femininity and masculinity. They draw across the line, things to do with polyandry, things to do with intrauterine insemination and sperm banks, marriage, children to have or not to have. So these are still controversial developments. At the end of the day, there isn't a right or a wrong, in my opinion. I will not take any sides. things, but the importance at the end of the day is to understand that we can't rule out and say we don't need men, and men can't rule out and say they don't need women. We all need each other at the end of the day. So it's important to understand how we can be able to take in new developments without looking down upon or discriminating against one gender role. Yes. So just to summarize again, healthy, I'll focus mostly on the feminine side. Again, the yin to the yang, as we said. So healthy feminine energy is open, is patient, is caring, is wise, flexible, compassionate. And unhealthy feminine energy is that complete, okay, let's just finish. Healthy feminine energy contains within it a little bit of masculine energy. That's the blue dot you see right there. So this helps to balance the feminine energy. It gives it a little bit more structure and focus. Whereas in the opposite, where we have unhealthy feminine energy, a complete absence of masculine energy, the person becomes stagnant, formless. So you need that blue dot, this one, as we've seen, yeah? And without that dot, you become lazy and focused, depressed, over-nurturing, unmotivated, and may not progress in life as a counterpart who would have that. This wasn't the topic of today, but I'll just pass through it slightly. So with healthy masculine energy, the person is focused, disciplined, active, and has a purpose and a vision. And it contains with it, again, a little pink, yes, of feminine energy. So that helps the person be soft and also have some depth and also emotional understanding, self-awareness, and makes the person much more wiser than they would be without it. So unhealthy masculine energy, complete absence of feminine energy, and can become destructive. It needs that little pink dot, yeah, like this one up there, to give it a heart and depth, and you know, that's not being able to live with people and connect with people. And without that feminine energy, one can be excessively aggressive, narrow-minded, cold, and frustrated. And such traits make it very difficult for one to be able to probably make connections and understand other people within the environment. So femininity is power, not weakness, and should be embraced and not ridiculed. I'm sorry, this diagram was supposed to be up there. I don't know how it found its way down here. But yes, what the society needs is not one or the other. The society needs both men and both women. The society needs both feminine and masculine energy, both in some integration form of. So again, there's no life manual. At the end of the day, we are just all in pursuit of happiness, both in the present and the future. And which no one should make your life feel like you're doing it wrong, as long as there are those set of things which of course are very wrong, but now when it comes to things to do with feminine energy, masculine energy, as long as you're living your life right, pursuit of happiness, you're happy, yes, there's no real life manual to how things should be. It's just a guide, but it's just not like this is, if you don't follow A, C will happen, you know. Yes, so just some further reading material, and that brings me to the end of my discussion.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. Yamuta. And if you were in the open forum, we would have given you a big hearty clap. And thank you, very insightful. And I'm sure Dr. Kigondu has really learned. He said he was looking forward to that. I'll go to the questions so that I'll read them. You can give us the answers. And I'm sure our listeners have been posting questions, and those who still have another one, they could post them in the Q&A section. And I don't know whether to start with the questions or let me start with the questions so that the nice comments can end, giving us something to carry home with. The first question, anonymous attendee, is it possible to overexpress femininity, Dr. Linda?
Yes, and as we saw in the last, one of the last slides, yeah, the pink the yin to the yang that we were seeing. One can have that overly feminine side, being an over nurturer, and so they lack focus. They're not motivated in life to be more, to achieve a sense of fulfillment per se. They are just, how do you put it? They just are unmotivated, overly nurturing, caring for everyone else, sometimes at their own expense. Yes, so it is possible to have an overly feminine person. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope the person who has asked has gotten a response. Then Bethel asked, what are some of the ways that a man can offer support to his spouse who suffers from a mental illness, especially depression?
Okay, so I think the first step, whether male or female, when you're trying to offer help to someone, so I'll first pick the side of the person who has insight, and then so you could be trying to offer help to someone who has insight, or you could be trying to offer help to someone who lacks insight. So when you're offering help to someone who has insight to their illness, I think the most important thing is just to ask them, how do you want me to help you? Because sometimes you may be doing things and feeling like you're offering help, but to their person, you're not meeting their point of need, So just finding out from them first, how do you want me to help you? Or is there anything I can do to help you? For those who lack insight, the most important thing, for me, one thing I always tell my patients and the family, the relatives, is try to protect your relative, spouse or friend, or rather the patient, as much as possible. And by protecting, I mean, you didn't want them to make wrong decisions based on their lesser judgment or interference with their normal judgment because of their illness. So when it comes to probably taking medication, they may be refusing to take medication because they lack insight. Are you able to push for that? Or if you're not able to push, inform the doctor that the person is not taking medication. When it comes to maybe having suicidal ideation, the other day I met a client who was asking the family to throw her in the river. You wouldn't want to do anything that harms them. When it comes to maybe like a bipolar patient who probably is overly familiar with people, being overly spending and throwing money to every other person, you want to protect them in that aspect as well, just making sure that maybe their cards are locked, something towards that. So protecting, for me, I would just put it as one envelope or one umbrella rather, protect the person, or if they have insight, just ask them, find out from them what help, how can I be of help to you? And of course, empathy goes a very long way, and just being caring and nurturing. For males, it's a bit more difficult. For women, I think it comes a bit more naturally, but just learning how to be empathetic to your spouse, of course, will go a very long way.
Thank you very much for that. And I'm sure Bethel has gotten an answer. This question here from Super Tuje. Great presentation, Dr. Yamuta. What is the place of religion in femininity and masculinity?
Ooh, you want me to rattle feathers? Okay, so when it comes to religion, different religions have different, how would I put it, like culture and different sets of rules, if I may put it as that. So there are things that may be helpful. Allow me to talk about Christianity, because that's the one I'm very much conversant with. So when it comes to Christianity, there's the good side, there's the bad side, when it comes to femininity, masculinity. So things to do with, as we said, like submission. It's a good thing because it helps the family to grow to be the head. But then when it comes to issues where there's gender-based violence, how far do you stop the submission? And also with some churches having a woman considering or a man considering divorce, it's considered a no-no. So it's like you need to still stay in that marriage because as the religion we have said that is the right thing to do and that is the right way to go. But your mental health is deteriorating because of the same space. So where do you draw the line? Because at the end of the day, we all need to be in a mentally safe space for us to be in a happy union. Yes.
Thank you very much. There is another question here, number of questions by Anonymous. When it comes to fulfillment, is there a balance really? How does one feel fulfilled? Especially when it comes to work-life balance, pressure to be successful, pressure to get married, pressure to get kids. Is balance really something that can be achieved? I think it hugely impacts mental health in general because it can bring a sense of non-fulfillment. I don't know whether it's a question or a comment, but what can you do for anything?
Okay, I think last week we had another CME, and one thing that came out was we're not really looking for a balance. We are looking to integrate both. We're not looking for a balance per se, because a balance means that you stop here and you know, it's a balance. It's 50-50 or 40-30, you know, but integration, are you able to just integrate everything together? Another issue when it comes to fulfillment is about what are your vision? What's your vision in life? What are your ambitions in life? What are your goals in life? And if you do not have that, you lack self-awareness, you lack a drive. Any road leads you anywhere, you know. So anything that comes sways you. Any societal pressure that comes sways you. So you need to understand yourself, have a grounding such that you know who you are, you know what you stand for, you know what your principles are, you know what your values are. Otherwise, when the society says you should be married by now, of course you start panicking, you know, but maybe that's not where you had envisioned your life at that time, you know. So, and also the other thing is, when it comes now to that societal pressure of marriage and children, are you ready? Are you even in a space to be a mother yet? You know, so will you just follow because society says, when are you having children? You just go and bring up a child being an irresponsible mother, being an irresponsible father, because society said you have to have children by this age, or you're married, be married for 3 years, you need to have children, you know. So it's about understanding yourself, your values, have goals, have dreams, have ambitions. There are things which are beyond us. Sometimes, like you can't marry yourself, for example. I saw someone who married the Holy Ghost, but for example, you can't marry yourself. So there are things which are beyond you. You may have some ambition or a goal with that, but also understanding that sometimes whatever is under your out of your control, you should not really take it to heart, and learn how to work around it. Again, still comes back to self-awareness, ambitions, your goals, your vision, and having a grounding.
Okay, thank you very much. I can see you have 1 minute. I have 2 questions. Daphne asked, what if those without insight reject their spouses, especially the ones delusional, e.g., one was denying the husband completely and saying the husband is someone else, yet they were married legally with 3 children. How will the spouse support such?
I think it will be important this is where family education and family therapy comes in hand. You as a spouse need to understand that this is someone who's unwell. Whatever they're saying is because they're in a mental state of illness, you know. So they probably, if they were okay, would not be mentioning such things. So it's important for you to understand that you should not take some of these things to heart. I know sometimes they may be very hurtful, some of the things they say, but you'll find for many, even when you tell them, or what they said or what they did after they become well. Some of them are very embarrassed. A lot of them don't even remember. So you as the person, the spouse or the relative or a friend of that person, you need to understand that this person is not in the proper state of mind. Their judgment sometimes is impaired. Their reasoning is impaired. Their cognition functions are all over the place. So allow them to heal without taking things to heart. If you feel maybe you've been traumatized by some of the things they have said or some of the things they have done to you, it probably would be important for you to also seek some therapy or some help for your own self to heal from that, but also having family education and family therapy to see how best to handle the patient whenever they're having maybe this relapse symptoms or they're in that state where they're being maybe out of insight. Yeah.
Thank you very much. There are two more questions. Dr. Kibunku asked, is there a role of psychologist treatment on women with more masculine trends? And would you say inheritance of masculine trends from the father may contribute?
I don't think I understand that too well, but again, as we said, there's the yin to the yang. You can't be fully feminine without a bit of some masculine energy. You can't be fully masculine without a bit of feminine energy. The problem is when we are exhibiting the extreme spectrum. Maybe as a female, you're exhibiting way more masculine traits than you are exhibiting feminine traits. That may now become an issue maybe to the people around you, to the environment around you. So yes, there would be a role of psychologists in trying to help understand the schemas, what we call the schemas. What is that is underlying this? Was there trauma? Was there that is now making the person be very assertive, making the person be very, doesn't want to speak about their feelings, which are considered more the masculine side. So it's also about understanding why are we there. But again, if the person is able to work in the environment, to maybe within their family context, they're okay. I don't see why we should be trying to force everybody in a certain type of line. That's my opinion anyway.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think that's the one. Emily says, in a society, discussion on feminism are normally nipped before they start. What has been your experience?
Sorry, kindly repeat that.
In our society, discussion on feminism are normally nipped before they start. What has been your experience? So before they start, they are called off or not allowed to continue.
I think now that comes in line with what is the topic at hand. Again, as we said, there's some conversations which are very uncomfortable for people. There's some conversations which are very uncomfortable for women to talk about. There's some conversations which men do not want to hear about. So it's just about the society being open to have these conversations and having an open mind to try and understand that we are coming from it's a developing world. Where we've come from, where we are now, there's a lot that has really changed. So it's about being open and just hearing out what is this about, but now I think part of the issues is now when it comes to the extremes, which I talked about, sometimes our conversation can be starting very innocently to talk about something, maybe, I don't know, maybe women empowerment or something, a very innocent conversation, and then it's dragged by the extremists, either the ones on the extreme masculine side or the extreme feminine side, to be a whole different conversation, which we've left facts aside and we are now focusing on trying to take back people to that, back time where the role of females was this. Why are you trying to be a man, quote unquote, Yeah, so I feel like just being open and wanting first to hear before making judgments, which as a society, I think we have a problem with that. We want to make a judgment before you even hear or understand what is going on.
Okay, finally there, this from one person, William Otieno, who says, the first one, kindly comment on women empowerment and feminism. But let me also read the next one. What is women liberalism? All right, maybe for me. Liberalism is the approach of woman empowerment, liberating or educating transformative.
I think to go back to the slide that I mentioned before, where we were as women, as a society, and how the society viewed women. Those days where women were to be seen and not heard, and you're just to either be the maiden, the wife, or the widow. But then now with women empowerment, women have now been able to take charge of their health. Women have been able to go to school. Women have been able now to take charge also of their economic growth as people. So women have been able to also take charge in some occupations that are predominantly male. So yes, there is a growth, very big growth when it comes to women empowerment, and it should be something that should be embraced. Again, extremists is where the problem comes in, but women empowerment has brought us very far from where we are, from where we were back then.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yamuta. I'm going to read some comments from the chat. Evening, everyone. Great presentation, thanks. Great presentation, Dr. Manyamute. Excellent, well done, Dr. And I think that one is what was asked. Thanks, Doctor. Quite informative, thank you. Great presentation, very insightful, thank you. Kindly post you, okay, no, that one. Then great awareness, indeed, thanks. Good answer, excellent presentation, Dr. Nyamute. Great presentation, Dr. Nyamute, cleared some misconceptions. I like the significance of the dots, yin yang. And then excellent presentation, really excellent presentation, very good presentation, really good conversation. Thanks, Dr. Nyamute, very well articulated. And thank you, Dr. Nyamute, for the wonderful presentation. The masculinity in a female and femininity in a male was one of the ideas developed by Carl Jung, who called it animus and anima. Jung, however, considered this predisposition to the unconscious. Then very informative, thank you. Very good presentation, great presentation. And indeed, it was a great presentation. And there's someone who is saying, next time teachers teach on epilepsy. I'm sure the people responsible have heard. And really, people have, it's all I can see is great presentation, great presentation, great presentation. Thank you very much. I've not seen another added question. And with that, I think the question and answer is done. I've read the comments, which have really, really highlighted how well the presentation has been. So I can hand it to Dr. Ohas to tell us before I thank all the organizations that have been responsible for helping us to have this presentation. Dr. Ohas, Liz.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mbwayo, for moderating this session for us. Thank you, Dr. Nyamute, for this very timely topic. To encourage us to embrace both our femininity and masculinity. I think I don't have much to say, except maybe invite Dr. Koba if she has something to say, and then I'll hand it over to you and Dr. Koba.
Thank you, Ohas. I don't think there's anything to add to that beautiful presentation. I think the most important bit is to remember that whether it's masculinity or femininity, is to use it for the good, not to use it negatively, so that it benefits us and the benefits those we interact with. Thank you. And thank you, Nyamute, for a wonderful presentation.
Thank you very much. And before we end, or I'm told it's time to go, I really wanted to acknowledge all the organizations that have made this presentation possible: KMA, CPAK, KPA, KCOA, NNAK, and all other associations who are represented here, plus their officials, and all the members who have attended this webinar. Really, I want to also acknowledge the chairs of the associations also present: the KMA chair, Dr. Were, KMA CEO, Dr. Njoki, MPAK chair, and all those other chairs who are there. I really want to say with me, I'm through from my side. And the members who are still, you can communicate for any other topic that you'd wish that it be discussed. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So as you leave, kindly just take note of what has been posted. That is our call center. It has our mental health specialists. It works between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. for all healthcare workers and their relatives. Please call and we will be able to call you back. If you can just call and say we will call you back if you're not able to speak to us. So those are the numbers. Kindly write them down and feel free to reach out to us. Thank you. Goodbye, everyone. I think that's all. Have a good evening. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I hope. Okay.